Around the time Nebuchadnezzar had besieged and destroyed Jerusalem, he had a dream where he was shown by God a line of rulers and kingdoms that would appear before the second coming of Christ. He was also told that he was the head of gold on the statue in the dream, not his father, but him. The vision of the statue was given in the same decade that the Ark of the Covenant was taken out of the temple and hidden. While the ark was standing in the temple, God had an earthly kingdom. But when it was removed because the people had rejected him and his law, God no longer had a free nation to be king over. Although Israel returned to the land and to Jerusalem after the Babylonian captivity, when the ark was no longer there indicating God's kingship, they were always suppressed or subdued by a greater earthly power. Babylon was the head of gold. Medo-Persia the silver. The Greek Empire was the brass, which continued divided under its 4 independent generals who succeeded the empire. The iron legs represented the Iron Kingdom, the Roman Empire. In the end, the Roman Empire would be divided into smaller independent kingdoms, as the iron on the feet is mixed with clay. At this time, God's people are scattered all over the earth. According to the vision that was given, the kingdom of Christ will destroy all of the other kingdoms and restore his own, illustrated by the big rock hitting the feet of the statue. So what the Bible teaches us is that from the time of Nebuchadnezzar destroying Jerusalem and the ark going into hiding, and until Christ's kingdom is restored, these lines of kingdoms would be in power. And we are now living in the time of the feet of the statue. And here is an interesting detail. The Babylonians besieged Jerusalem on the 10th day of the 10th month. From this time the ark was removed, and this image had its start. But the Roman Empire has long been divided. Many conquerors have tried to unify the old territory of the empire. It was attempted by intermarriage, through religion by the Catholic Church. It was attempted by force, just like Charles the Great, Napoleon, and Hitler. They all tried, but none of them ever succeeded to unite the former territories of the old Roman Empire. In the end, an attempt at a European Union has been done. But as the prophecy said about the divided kingdom, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. This is the time period for the second coming of Christ. If God's throne that went into hiding at the start of this statue signalized the start of the time of the heathen kingdoms, what would its reappearance signify? What would be the counter image? Ron Wyatt tried to locate the ark for over 3 years. In the last days, right before he found it, he was about to give up. But God has his times. Ron finally broke through the wall and entered the chamber on the biblical date of the 10th day in the 10th month, the same date the Babylonians besieged Jerusalem. For Ron, it was just the 6th of January in the Gregorian calendar, but for God, it was nothing but a power statement. When the Babylonians besieged Jerusalem, it forewarned its destruction. When the ark is rediscovered, it forewarns that God's judgment is imminent. The one who is now on the offensive is God himself besieging his enemies. Just like Judah believed they would be saved when they were besieged by Babylon, and they weren't. The descendants of the religion, mentality, and powers of Babylon are unaware of the danger they are currently in, and that the siege God executes on the kingdoms of this world will have its prophesied end. The ark would no longer be hidden. It was going to resurface, signalizing that the feet of the statue is about to be hit by the rock. God's kingdom is about to be restored. The earthly powers will be judged and sentenced for long perverting the truth and subduing his faithful. God knows exactly what he is doing. This is why you can be certain that the start of this statue and the removal of the ark is connected. So is the destruction of these successive kingdoms and the resurfacing of the ark. When Jerusalem was under siege, it tarried for a while. Suddenly and unexpectedly, the Babylonian ruler stood in the gate, and the king of Judah had to flee the same night. But how long does God's siege last? According to the Bible, we are not told the day and hour, because his coming will be sudden and unexpected as part of God's strategy against his enemies. However, the years from the ark was rediscovered and removed from its stone box are a time period for people to be warned. Many ask why it has taken so many years. These years are years of extended mercy. In Jeremiah's days, concerning the time before Jerusalem's destruction, which in the Bible is a type of the earth's destruction, God said he sends his prophets early, meaning that his messages and warnings comes in good time before he makes his move so that people can be well prepared. There is little time left. We are living on borrowed time. The book of Revelation tells us that God's people are not ready and many have fallen away. It also gives this last-minute plea. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. This is the time for you to rejoice in the Lord, and cling to him, and throw away the idols of this world. For the world is about to be judged in a matter of a short time, and if you are of the world, you will be judged with the world. You also need to leave the churches that promote and teach the violation of God's law, and you must leave the churches who has persecuted God's people in the past. They have used force, diplomacy, and infiltration to persecute. All of these churches are soon going to be judged. However, fear not, do not consider your past or where you have had your roots as a problem for God. God's warning in Revelation is an invitation to all that have been deceived by false religious leaders and by the mentality of the world. It's an invitation for you to escape. If you follow God's call in Revelation, you are with Christ and his Spirit is dwelling within you, and there is no condemnation. The blood of Christ and his righteousness will cover you on Judgment Day.